Hi, I'm Barry Farber, and this is In Search of the Magic Tree. What magic are we looking for? Well, if you think about a tree, several things come to mind. One, the roots, the foundation for something great. Two, the branches, representing the connection and continuation of our legacy as we pass down the values and beliefs to the next generation. And three, potential, something that starts as small as an acorn and becomes a giant oak. We're going to explore how we can build the mind, body, and spirits of our children, how to raise our kids with key traits like patience, positive attitudes, courage, empathy, determination, and more. Join me on this adventure as we talk to celebrities, athletes, entertainers, business leaders, educators, brain surgeons, and more about the magic to building success at an early age. And we have Joetta. That's all I'll need to say is Joetta. You know who she is? She's a world-class athlete with a work ethic second to none. She was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2009, ranked top 10 in the world 9 times, 15-time All-American, 11-time USA National Champion, 1997 at age 37 ranked number 4 in the world, and she is a track and field expert. I want to tell you something interesting about this show is that we're going to take a look at not just Joetta's upbringing, her father, who is Joe Clark. They made the movie from Lean On Me, played by Morgan Freeman, but her younger sister, her sister-in-law, her brother, who's her coach, her daughter, who is an All-American. We're going to get to her in a moment, but she is surrounded by a milieu of unbelievable foundations for success in the field she's in and for life. So, Joetta, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Barry, for having me on. I'm excited to hear more about this interview myself. You kicked it off with a good introduction. Thank you.
Sit back and enjoy, Joetta. This will be great. I really want to start with this because I think this is so important. I want the audience, not just to go into your 4-time Olympian and experience there with the Olympics and track and field, but tell us about your upbringing, about how you were raised, because your work ethic is tremendous and so many other things, but can we get inside a little bit of how you were brought up and what lessons or teachings came across in the early years?
Sure. I was raised by my father, Joe Clark, and my mother, Joetta Clark. And you did mention that he is Dr. Joe Clark, the subject of the movie Lean On Me. And my mother was an entrepreneur in the city of Newark before the 1967 riots. I preface that because my father became famous when I was in college. However, the early years, he was just a black guy raising kids in the city of Newark, New Jersey. But one thing was consistent with the family values and family direction was that we were going to listen to our parents. We were going to be receptive to whatever they said, and that we could do anything that they said we could do, that we put our minds to, and they would provide a situation, an atmosphere for us to be successful. So that is basically how it happened. Back in those days, in the early 60s, we didn't talk back to our parents. So when they said that we had to do something, we just did that. And our work ethic came from both parents, my father being in the Army and my mother just working hard, being a black woman working hard, coming up from the South, and then getting to a point where she had her own business.
You know, I love what you said, you know, the respect for your parents and listening to them. And the other thing is that they said, you know, that kind of environment, if you put your mind to something, you could do anything you want to do. And I know that's a cliche and it's said so many times. But tell me, what did they do that made you feel confident and have that self-esteem, which you talk about so much in your seminars and speeches?
Well, the first thing they did was they led by example. So we saw our parents going to work. We saw them having good character, being Christians. We saw them really making a lot of sacrifices. So we saw that, and that was imbued in our spirit. We visually saw it, we felt it, and we knew that that was the way to go. But one thing they did also was that they provided the atmosphere, the environment for us to succeed. And by that, they didn't know what we were going to do, but they eliminated all of the excuses. When it came to school, we studied hard. If we needed help, we had tutoring. When it came to athletics, we trained hard. If we needed help, we got some other coaching. When it came to playing basketball, and I danced with the Albanelli Dance Company, we had upbringing lessons. We had skating lessons. Whatever it took for us to exceed in a certain area, they made sure they provided the atmosphere for us to succeed.
You know, the beginning part of that, you said that they practice what they tell you to do. They do lead by example. And I remember an interesting, I think it was a psychiatrist. I forgot. I interviewed her probably in the early 90s. That's how long ago it was. But she said a family came to her and said they had these problems. The kids wouldn't study. But what happened was the father came home, lied down in front of the TV, and told the kids to study. So he wasn't really emulating or doing what he was telling the kids to do. And as soon as they changed their environment where they were reading, they had a special room where they would read, and everybody would sit down, and the mom would pay the bills maybe, and then it became easier because they were doing what they were telling them to do. That's a huge thing that your parents.
We didn't have excuses. If they said to do something, we did it. We didn't talk back. We didn't question. And nowadays, the kids may question more. But for what we were doing, where we were living, and what we were trying to aspire to, it wasn't something that we did. We didn't talk back. We followed. We listened, and there was no nonsense. We had fun. However, a lot of things my parents said was you can have fun after you take care of business. And so as I've gotten older, the same thing applies. I like to have fun. But there are certain things that have to happen in my day before I have the fun.
Right. What do you think today's environment is like, and what needs to be changed based upon the way you were raised?
Well, I think, in all fairness, Barry, it's hard to say that the things that I went through and try to have that set on for the kids today. I think a lot of things were happening in the 60s, race relations, there's diversity and inclusion now. It wasn't called that back then. So there were a lot of differences in the life, in the culture of the country. But I do think the one thing that I would like to remain consistent with kids now is that parents are not friends. When your kids are little, you are the parent. If you're not their buddy, you're not their friend, you are their parent. You're overseeing, and you're guiding, and you're directing, and you're loving, and you're caring. And I think that similarity, that piece needs to be used today.
I just heard what you said, and I get so excited that I want to lead into all the with the Olympics and your training and the accomplishments there. But I want to stay for a second at a young age, at 3 years old, 5 years old, and what you just said about not being. I know people who they feel bad. They're tied between. Let's say the mom wants to be friends and the father doesn't, or the father wants to be friends and the mom doesn't, and there's no really communication, and sometimes the kids can play that back and forth. So it's a hard thing. How do you tell a parent today to really stay focused on that kind of parent-child relationship with the discipline and the respect without trying to be their buddy?
I think that every family has their own dynamic, but I think that as a parent, when I talk to parents and families, I often say there's a respect factor. Not only do the kids respect you, you respect them. And once they feel a respect factor, that takes over being a friend, if that makes sense. Because if you are just trying to be their buddy and hanging out with them and speaking their language, there is no direction, there's no guidance, and no example. But if they feel as though you respect them, as they, and you're asking them to respect you, but by respecting them, the kids look at that as friends. So you are my friend because you're respecting me, not having to step down to their level of doing things. So the respect and friendship comes with you respecting your child.
Well said. And obviously the tough part sometimes as a parent, when they're that young, they don't realize that, later in life it's going to pay back when they do the hard work of the parent-child relationship versus giving in. because once you give in later on, it's very difficult when they start becoming 10 and 15 and teenagers. But I really love that. What do you think are some of the keys that, 11-time USA national champion. In 97, they said you're ranked 4th in the world at age 37. And not to give away your age or anything, you definitely look a lot younger than you are. I'm just amazed at what you've accomplished. What do you think that, what are some of your core goals? I know there has to a lot with the P word from your book. I bet you can talk about that. But what are some of the key things that really you focused on over the years?
I think over the years, I've grown up now. You're right. Being that I was born in '62, you know how old I am now. And even though I don't look my age, I thank you very much for the compliment. I do understand and have a lot of wisdom. So what I like to do is I focus on my P's, and I also focus on my S's. My P's are, what is your purpose? You have to get prepared. You have to be patient. You get perturbed. You persevere, and you pray. But along that, you have to use my S's. And these are the S's that I think families need to use to make sure that their kids, and I can't say will be successful, but you are providing a tapestry for them to maximize their skill sets and be the best that they could be. And that's my 4 S's. You have to have a strategy. You have to have a skill set. You have to have staying power. And then you have to also have support. And I think when parents, if we use those S's, we can be, it helps us with our kids. Have a strategy, have staying power, know your skill set, and then have support.
I love that. And I'm going to focus on 2 right now. And, the show is called In Search of the Magic Tree. And, everybody wonders, what's the magic tree? What's the magic? Well, it's, you have an amazing tree. When you talk about roots and foundation and the branches from your parents to you, to your children, to your child, your daughter, and your siblings. I want to focus first on staying power, and I relate that to in the book, and you'll get a copy. Sherman the Turtle is all about determination. It's one of the key factors for reaching the magic tree. But determination comes in all different ways. What is staying power to you? What are some of the things then people get discouraged, and what gets rid of determination? Obstacles, defeat, failure, lack of confidence. So what are some of the things that you talk about that are important for staying power?
Staying power is important, and the main thing with staying power is knowing your purpose. And your purpose doesn't change for the situation. And your purpose is the one thing that allows you to never quit. So when we're talking about staying power, we're talking about understanding and realizing your purpose. And then your why. Your why has to be bigger than your why not. So when you have staying power, you have a purpose. And because you have a purpose, you have a why. And the why has to be bigger than the why not. And then when you're raising kids, you have to know your purpose. And I don't know what people's purpose are for their family, but I know what mine is. And so you have a purpose, and then your staying power. When they don't listen, when they're doing well, whatever it is, you can't throw the towel in on them, and you can't throw the towel in on your plan for the family, for the child.
I would like to know, do you think that I'm going to just name a few things, and I want you to tell me what you think is the most important. When you talk about confidence for kids, confidence. Then there's determination. Yeah. Then there's attitude and courage. Out of those 4, I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Confidence, determination, attitude, and courage.
Okay. Well, that's a tough one there, but if I had to pick one of these out, I'm going to go with the attitude. The attitude. Because, and I'm going to back into it. If you have courage, if you're fearless, that's good. But if you're fearless and your attitude is an attitude of I don't care, nothing matters, I'm the great one, or whatever. If you have that attitude, that's not beneficial. That's not productive. That's counterproductive. If you have a great attitude, if you are a visionary, then you're determined. But determination, you could be determined to do something that's not productive for your growth. You see, so I'm determined to have behaviors that are not going to get me to good places in life. But you're determined to do that. But that's not where your energy should go into that. So out of all of those, I'm going to go with attitude, because your attitude allows you to fly. And when you have the proper attitude, no one could clip your wings.
Yeah, I love that. And Joetta, that, believe it or not, there was a study at Harvard Business School, Harvard University, that looked at the key success factors, 4 of them, of executives. They did all this huge study, and it's documented, where they got all these things back, and it had to do with 4 key factors. It had to do with experience, knowledge, intelligence, and attitude. And all 4 were rated, and believe it or not, attitude was 97%. The other 3 were, was 93% attitude, and 7% the rest. So you're right on the money, because that makes a lot of sense. And talking about attitude, how you have a great one, and you're always positive every time I talk to you, and you're relentless too. I think that's important. People don't understand tenacity, how critical that is when you get rejections or no's or whatever when you're trying to do something big. How have you instilled that in your daughter, who is an academic All-American and track and field All-American, champion student, athlete at University of Florida, and she's been accomplishing some tremendous things? What do you attribute that success to, and how you raised her? I'm just wanted to hear about that.
Oh, boy. I think that with her, and I think parents, especially when you have a child that you see has something special, we all think our kids have special traits and characteristics, but that some of the kids, some people just have that it, and when you see that in your child, you have to kind of gravitate toward it and nurture it. So that's what I was able to do with Talitha, was able to nurture her it. And her it was her ability to listen, her ability to absorb, and everything I taught her as a youngster was that. But the key thing here was I allowed her to have her own personality. And I think often parents want their children to follow them and be like them. As great as we think we are, they have their own identities. And I allowed her to be herself. And when it came to track and field, she wanted to do the sprints. I did the 800. She runs the 400 and the 200. When it came to academics, she's very intelligent, very smart, and she does really well in her course studies. And I allowed her to study the way that she wanted to study, because when I grew up, we couldn't study with a TV on and have all this noise, but these kids are able to have the noise. So as long as she was able to do well in school, get the grades that would be commensurate with her knowledge base, then she could keep the TV on. I couldn't say no TV on or whatever, no music or whatever. That worked for me, didn't work for her. So I think allowing her to be herself and having her own personality is what allowed her to thrive in sports and in school.
Yeah, that's well said. And it's Talitha, right? You pronounce it Talitha?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
yes, Talitha.
Is there something you did? Do you remember when she was really young, like 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever? I mean, do you remember anything that you did that? Because I do believe. I keep saying this, it just blows my mind that a neuroscientist said to me that you can learn 5-6 languages by the age of 5, the plasticity of the brain. It keeps coming back to me that, I wish I did more. I did more because of that, but you don't realize what a diamond in the rough you have. And do you remember any of the activities you did that really fostered what she's become?
I do. I remember all of them. One thing that I did with her, and I talk about this all the time. When she was little, I sat down and I read with her, and I let her read with me. I always told her that she could accomplish anything that she wanted to. I spoke positive things into her existence. I had her on a schedule as a youngster. She got up, we got dressed, we did our homework. This is little because I was homeschooling her, so we did our assignments. We ate. We sat at the table. We ate. I see a lot of kids when they're eating, parents walking behind them with a spoon trying to feed them. No, she sat down at the table. We said our grace. We got up. She helped with the dishes. She did studying. When we went away on trips, we pointed out the different historical sites. So we exposed her to so much, but a schedule. She had a nap time, and schedules are important. So now that she's in college and she's on her own, she gets up, she has a schedule, she has to, get ready for school, drive into school, allow enough time for class. So a schedule is so important for kids when they're very young. They just can't let them do whatever they want. Monday they're doing this, Tuesday they're doing that, Wednesday. Get a structure, get a schedule, because it also allows you to get a routine. And so that you're not exhausted all the time because the kid is running the household with their schedule. I don't want to go to sleep. Well, they know that when you go in your room, you may not go to sleep, but this is your downtime. So you could read a book, you could draw, you could watch some TV. Not much. We didn't do much TV. There was no TV in the room, and she only had a certain amount of time where she could watch TV. But, I think that allowed her to explore other things. She was the only child, so her imagination ran wild, and that was really good. But yes, Barry, a schedule. That was the main thing that I did.
But I was just thinking, my wife would love you for that. She's a schedule freak, whether it's my kids, my dogs, so that is something that helps get structure right away early. But I think more than that, what you were talking about with reading and the time you spent with her and saying grace and eating and spending the time where hopefully maybe the phones were away and, you have time together like that and taking her places. That's all great, amazing stuff that I think, there's a lesson I learned from this lady who teaches kids with speech impediments at an early age. She said, you need to have 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes, no phone, no electronics, nothing with your child. And it shows that you feel they're important, that you're not jumping to your phone doing this. And I think what you just said there had a lot to do with that.
I think you need more than 15 minutes, but that's a start. It's easy to do.
Right. No, that's what she said. Minimum. Right. Yes. Joetta, anything you'd like to share with the listeners, about your parents? Obviously your father had I saw the movie. It was an amazing, Morgan Freeman playing the part and anything about your younger sister and brother, anything about the family unit that you'd like to share that helped attribute to your success?
I think one thing, too, that our parents talked about a lot was being able to support one another, that we were each other's biggest fans. And so when we were together, when we were at meet or when we were away on vacation, we supported each other's dreams and aspirations, and they were big on that family connectivity, that the family values, the family morals, the family beliefs, they were more important than any of your friends and that you may run into. Family matters. Family's first. So that is how we were raised. And my father, like I said, he was no nonsense. So it was either my way or the highway. They always said, rule one, I'm always right. Rule two, rule number one, I'm always right. So that is kind of how it was raised. I think now I have a rule one. Rule one is I'm always right. But my rule two will probably be I will listen to you to see why you think I'm wrong. But that's a 2022 vision, not a 1962 vision.
This has been tremendous, Joetta. I know I went over a little time here, but every time I have you on a program, you have so much tremendous info and practical ideas that make a lot of sense. I know the listeners out there, I just want to say something you didn't mention about speaking or anything. I sometimes have guests, that's all they talk about. Well, when I'm speaking and I do my lecture, but if you understand, she has the content. She amazes audiences. People love her. And you walk away with practical applications that you can put to use right away, as you can see just from the insights here for parenting. And I want to ask you this last question. I want to give you two things to answer. Obviously, I want to hear more. You're an entrepreneur, health and wellness a specialist, and you do so many things. First, I'd like to hear about any updates on what you're doing, and then I want to ask you one final question.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We are always trying to be relevant, and so to be relevant right now, I have a podcast called the Be Extraordinary Podcast, and that can be found on my website, which is JoettaSportsAndBeyond.com. And I also have a fitness app that's coming out called Joe Time Fitness, and it's made to help anyone that wants to have about 20 minutes of fitness in different levels, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Jotyme, Jotyme fitness. So those are some big things. And then speaking is always something that I do. Corporate groups, collegiate groups, diversity and inclusion, women groups. Anyone that wants to hear on how to be motivated, how to be inspired, know some tips on how to be successful, how to achieve your goals, and how to deal with complex situations and being derailed at times and reinventing yourself. If you want that kind of information, then visit the website and have me come in to help you navigate through that.
Say the website one more time, Joetta.
The website is Joetta, Joetta, Joetta Sports, SPORTS, @yahoo.com. Or, Barry, like you said at the beginning, just put Joetta in, Google my name, and everything comes up.
Like McDonough.
Oprah, Magic, you got it, one name.
I love it, Joetta. I love it. It's a great name, and I want to ask the last question. I've asked you before, but sometimes these things change, and I want to know today. You know, you have an amazing child, a family. What is your definition of success?
Barry, over the years, it has changed, but if I can just say it in this one sentence, my definition of success is that at the end of the day, when you look in the mirror and you can say, job well done, then that's success. It's not about the money, the cars, the education. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, job well done. Because at the end of the day, you can fool the whole world down the pathways of life and get pat on the back as you pass, but your true reward will be heartache and pain if you trick the person in the glass. So when you look in the mirror and there's no trickery, and you can say, job well done, that to me is success.
Joetta, that was a great one. I love it. And thank you. Thanks a million for coming on the program again. I know how busy you are. I appreciate it. Really good stuff. Joetta, thank you again. This is Barry Farber, In Search of the Magic Tree. Never stop the search.